were your thoughts when 50 Cent blamed the second season ratings dip on gay stuff?
First of all, the pot calling the kettle black.
People think Soulja Boy was only beefing with Marlon Wayans. Wrong, that was just the surface. The truth is, Soulja's been fighting battles with a whole closet full of skeletons, and every time one door creaks open, more secrets spill out. What looked like a petty radio jab snowballed into something bigger, exposing years of buried dirt, contradictions, and the kind of behind-the-scenes chaos that Hollywood usually keeps under lock and key. See, most people only caught the basics. Yeah, Soulja had that infamous performance at a crypto event during Trump's inauguration weekend. Yeah, Marlon brushed him off in a casual radio chat, barely even trying to make it a big deal. But the reason Soulja snapped so fast? That's the real story. When someone's carrying as much baggage as Big Draco, even the smallest joke feels like big trouble. And Soulja didn't hesitate. He sprinted straight to X and blasted out his comeback. I can't believe I'm arguing with a dude that dressed up like a white chick.
Soulja Boy, he been canceled. He nobody cares Soulja Boy. So Soulja Boy better go get that check. Yeah, I don't think he had hits in.
It's
been a while.
What's wrong with me? It was meant to sting, meant to flip the spotlight back on Marlon. But Marlon, he's no rookie. He's been around Hollywood long enough to spar with legends, critics, and tabloids. So instead of folding, Marlon swung back with precision, peeling apart Soulja's brick-by-brick built image. That was the first crack, and once the crack started, they spread fast. Because here's the thing, the industry had been whispering about Soulja's contradictions for years. People talked in green rooms, in studio corners, in private calls nobody thought would leak. His tough guy act, his street image, his larger-than-life flexing, it all looked airtight on Instagram, but behind closed doors, stories painted a messier picture. Marlon's clapback just pulled the curtain wide open, and then came the bombshell. William Debus stepped onto Tasha K's podcast, claiming he had receipts from his alleged run-ins with Soulja. Now, most people dismiss random guests on podcasts, but William didn't come empty-handed. He described the condo layout down to the last hallway. He listed bottles from Soulja's liquor cabinet. He even mentioned tattoos, ones that don't show in public pictures. That's the kind of detail you don't just pull out of thin air. It sounded too specific, too personal, and it shook people who'd only known the loud, memeable version of Soulja Boy. But this wasn't even the first time hints like this had surfaced. Years earlier, Vivica Fox dropped sly comments about that XXL cover with Soulja Boy and 50 Cent. When people brought up 50 blaming low ratings on gay stuff, Vivica's clapback carried weight. She didn't name names outright, but her tone was loaded, like someone who had seen far more than she was letting on. And Vivica isn't some newbie desperate for clout. She's a seasoned vet who's been around long enough to watch masks slip and curtains drop in every corner of the industry. Put those puzzle pieces together. Williams' receipts, Vivica's hints, Soulja's hypersensitive reaction to Marlon's harmless jab, and it starts to look less like random gossip and more like projection. The textbook kind. When someone lashes out in an over-the-top way, especially with transphobic digs, it usually says more about their own insecurities than the person they're attacking. And that theory looks stronger than ever when Marlon decided to push things further.
I had some lube, it was lubey, it was everything, and it was perfect. And he was like, hey, this new white, like he kept, like, he's very like into like the race play stuff. But here's the thing, I don't know if this was really him or it was like drunk him.
He didn't just clap back on radio or Twitter, he dropped a full-on country-style diss track. The internet barely had time to process before the song went viral. The bars weren't just jokes, they were venom dressed in melody. He rapped, "Soulja Boy is on crack and meth. I can smell it on his breath." The line hit like a hammer, and the internet went wild. Group chats lit up. DJs spun the track in clubs. Even radio stations that normally stayed neutral couldn't resist playing it. Overnight, Marlon flipped from being the guy who made a clever comeback to a full-blown viral star, proving he could spit bars sharper than half the rappers Soulja had ever stood next to. And the chaos didn't stop there. Not long after, TMZ cameras caught Marlon leaving a restaurant in LA. Most people would have used the chance to cool things down to smooth over the drama, but Marlon, he doubled down. Right there with the world watching, he mocked Soulja's music. "You got songs, but I only remember one of them. Watch Me You and Be With Me. Get out of here." Then came the knockout. "I put you in one of the movies." That line wasn't just a diss, it was a reminder of hierarchy. Marlon wasn't scrambling to stay relevant. He had decades in the game, credits, classics, a resume Soulja couldn't touch. And with one line, he flipped the script. Soulja was the extra in Marlon's world, not the other way around. But Soulja made a fatal mistake. Instead of keeping the battle between him and Marlon, he took it somewhere dark, dragging Marlon's transgender son, Kai, into the mess. He sneered, "That runs in the family, huh? Marlon Wayans. No wonder you like dressing up as a bop." The line wasn't clever, it was cruel, and it crossed a line that you don't come back from. The backlash was instant. Hollywood insiders, fans, and even people who usually avoided drama couldn't stay quiet, because in this world, secrets don't stay buried forever. Everyone knows everyone else's dirt, and most of the time, it stays tucked away out of professional courtesy. But once you attack family, once you target somebody's child, that's when people stop protecting your skeletons and start dragging them out into the light. And for Soulja, that meant one of his oldest, ugliest controversies resurfaced, the infamous mansion shooting. Here's the scene. What was supposed to be a lit celebration for his album release spiraled into something that looked straight out of a crime series. Soulja swore masked intruders stormed his home, forcing him to play action hero. He painted himself like the victim, the defender, the one protecting his people from chaos. In his version, it was a break-in gone wrong, a heroic defense. But when you peel back the layers, the story falls apart. Because the name at the center of it wasn't some random masked robber, it was a man named Droop. And Droop's version of events, completely different. According to him, he and his crew weren't intruders at all. They were signed to Soulja's own label. They'd been in the trenches, making music, creating content, choreographing shows. They weren't outsiders, they were supposed to be family. The real drama kicked off when they heard one of their tracks blasting at Soulja's release party, but with a twist. Soulja had slapped his own verse on top, without permission, without credit, and without payment. To Droop, it wasn't just theft, it was betrayal. Months of work, promises of features, credits, revenue, all gone. And when he tried to confront Soulja, things went left fast. Droop swears he slapped Soulja twice before the room turned violent. That's when, according to him, Soulja pulled the trigger. But here's the twist. Droop didn't die that night. He staggered to a car, got rushed to a hospital, and woke up in handcuffs. That's right. While fighting for his life, he was already being treated as a criminal. Why? Because Soulja had gotten to the cops first, spinning his side of the story. Droop was charged with attempted robbery and faced 25 years behind bars. But Soulja's story didn't add up. At first, he told police 5 masked men broke in. Then that number mysteriously dropped to 3. The number of weapons he described, that kept changing too, like a shaky script being rewritten on the fly. Droop wasn't about to let his name go down like that.
Say this about Soulja Boy. Y'all gotta give him a little bit of latitude because he a victim. And he been ran through quite a bit. They was playing tapes, and then the owner of the house pulled out Soulja Boy tape. That's why he's always able to call other on being a swish. Birds of a feather flock together.
Get in your position. What? I got on MySpace and YouTube and grinded as a teenager in the hood, and I made, and you mad because you had to get in your ass. You had to suck.
He hired powerhouse lawyer Brian Steele, the same man defending Young Thug, and Steele tore the case apart. With no consistent evidence, no airtight testimony, and holes all through Soulja's version, the prosecution crumbled. In the end, Droop only served a year, most of which he'd already spent locked up waiting for trial. And that's just one skeleton, one night, one story. But when you zoom out, you see the bigger picture. Soulja Boy isn't just beefing with Marlon Wayans. He's beefing with his own past, his own contradictions, his own carefully polished image cracking at the edges. Every clapback, every diss, every reckless line just invites more skeletons to come tumbling out. What makes the whole saga even crazier is that Soulja's own former right-hand man, AAB, actually backed up Droop's version of events. That alone turned whispers into something heavier. See, AAB and Soulja had been beefing for years, so it wasn't like he had a reason to protect him. If anything, people expected him to throw dirt just for the sake of revenge, but when he spoke about that so-called masked intruder, his voice reportedly shook. It didn't sound like a man making up a story. It sounded like someone who had lived through something ugly, something traumatic. And when enemies back up enemies, you start to wonder, maybe the whole truth really is darker than Soulja's polished retelling. But Droop and AAB weren't the only ones pointing fingers. This wasn't a one-off story. It started looking like a pattern. Over and over again, artists who worked with Soulja came out saying the same thing. He lures people in with promises of features, money, exposure, then flips the script. Their beats, their hooks, their energy somehow end up credited to him, and they're left with nothing but broken promises while Soulja cashes in. Even outside music, his business moves look just as shady. Remember when he bragged about being the first rapper to drop a gaming console? That headline sounded huge, but when fans got a closer look, it turned out the Soulja console was nothing more than a rebranded Chinese emulator with a ridiculous price tag. Or that time, he flaunted photos of a giant mansion, only for people to uncover it was an Airbnb rental he didn't even own. These weren't accidents, they were part of the same smoke and mirrors formula he'd been running for years.
You can't do 2 songs, and I only remember one of them. Watch me, you. Beef with me. Get out of here. Put you in one of the movies. I need a crackhead for the new scary. I need a crack and a meth head all mixed together. You're perfect. I need someone that looks like a wet Muppet. That's what I am. I need crack and meth together. I need creth together. I want someone to look like they'll sell your car, rob you, and suck all at the same time. Soulja Boy.
Soulja Boy is on cognac and meth. I can smell it on his breath. Yes, he's on that creth. It's cognac and meth.
And then there was the infamous Trump inauguration crypto gig. Soulja tried to spin it as just another performance, but his own words gave him away. He basically admitted he only moves for whoever cuts the biggest check. It didn't matter what the stage was, who was behind it, or what it represented. If the money was there, he'd show up. And that's why Marlon's roast cut so deep. He wasn't just joking for a laugh. He was pulling back the curtain on how Soulja had built his whole brand, not on skill, not on staying power, but on gimmicks, shortcuts, and stunts. Instead of focusing on a steady career, Soulja spent years screaming about being the first to do things. But when you peel back the noise, those firsts weren't real. They were inflated, exaggerated, or flat out fake. And when the pressure finally hit too hard, he cracked. He panicked. 1 minute, he was going wild online. The next, he was wiping tweets, posting a half apology like he could erase the damage. I apologize for crashing out, he wrote. I just be trying to defend myself, but sometimes I take it too far. Back to the music and TV shows. Love y'all. But it was too late. The damage was already done. See, this beef hit differently because it wasn't just about rap or clout or internet numbers. It showed how shady the entertainment industry can really be. There's an unspoken code in the game. People keep certain things off limits. Family, kids, private struggles. You don't cross those lines unless you're ready for war. But when Soulja went after Marlon's son Kai with that transphobic trash, he didn't just cross the line, he stomped on it. Marlon has always stood solid with his son. Just this past June, he posted pride photos with Kai, captioned with a message that stopped people in their tracks. As a father of a child in the LGBTQ+ community, I show my support. Zero care what people think. If I lost you, good. That's real. That post had people calling him Father of the Year, and that's why the LGBTQ+ community didn't hesitate for a second when Soulja's words hit. Within hours, hashtag Protect Kai was trending. Brands that had once lined up behind Soulja, they started ghosting him. And when money leaves, the industry listens. Marlon didn't even need a PR team to spin it. He clapped back with surgical precision. His line was simple but deadly. If Soulja Boy had a career, he could get canceled for this type of slander.
Who the f in this crib? A-Rap passed me the bam, I look through the door. I see like 3-4 niggas running through the crib. All black, mask on, running through the crib. One nigga run to the front door. I hop out, I start shooting. Bow, 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 bow. Shot the bow, shot his ass. Bow, 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 bow.
That wasn't a diss, it was a body bag. He wasn't trading insults. He was dismissing Soulja's relevance entirely, and he didn't stop there. He doubled down saying, luckily, he ain't been relevant since 2007. Then came the line that went nuclear. My child had top surgery and still has more chest than you. That one exploded online. 2 million likes in just hours. It was clear Marlon had hit a nerve that Soulja couldn't even reach. What made it sting worse was watching who the industry stood with. On one side, you had Marlon, decades of success, classics under his belt, a resume that spoke louder than any diss track. In living color, white chicks, sold out stand-up tours, a legacy carved deep. On the other side, Soulja, still trying to stretch crank, that like it was 2007, still hustling shady side projects nobody bought into, still chasing first, that didn't matter. The loyalty check told the story. A-list names lined up behind Marlon supporting him openly. Meanwhile, Soulja's corner looked empty. Even artists who used to collaborate with him suddenly acted like they didn't remember. That silence was louder than any diss track, and the fallout started hitting fast. 3 major sponsors reportedly yanked their checks within weeks, his streaming numbers tanking. Meanwhile, Marlon was out here stacking wins, getting inducted into the NOACP Image Awards Hall of Fame, locking in major studio deals for new LGBTQ+ projects, and riding a tidal wave of social media support. The irony, Soulja used to call himself the pioneer of internet rap marketing. And to be fair, back in the mid-2000s, he was. He knew how to use MySpace and YouTube to flip a song into a cultural phenomenon. But in 2025, he just got outplayed by a comedy legend who ran a masterclass in how to control the internet. Marlon played every card perfectly. The text, the pictures, the pride posts, that viral country diss track. It wasn't just a comeback, it was a blueprint on how to win a beef in the digital age. And here's the real takeaway. When your whole life is built on cap, you don't come for a comedy legend's kid. Not when that legend is sitting on a vault of industry secrets that people have been whispering about for years. Soulja thought he was poking fun. Instead, he gave Marlon the green light to open the closet, and now those skeletons aren't just out. They're doing the electric slide in broad daylight. Scoreboard check, Marlon stacking wins, NAACP honors, studio deals, public support. Soulja, his brand's collapsing, his sponsors gone, his reputation in shambles, and the scariest part, insiders are already whispering that this isn't even the end. They say Soulja's closet still has more skeletons waiting to tumble out. Drop your thoughts in the comments, smash that like button, and hit subscribe because this saga ain't over yet.